How much money do you need to be earning before it's worthwhile to move your business offshore? Someone recently commented that said, if you're not in the top 1% of income earners, there's no reason for you to go offshore. That's simply not true. But I'm going to tell you exactly how I approach this in this video. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. I've spent now well over a decade learning and researching and strategizing all the different ways to go offshore, both from a tax perspective, from an investment perspective, from a living perspective. And I've been helping people do this for a while. So I look at the question, how much do I need to make before I go offshore, a bit differently than someone who has only theoretical knowledge. Because to me, there's the theoretical math equation, and there's also the behavioral equation. What I've said before is, you know that you can go offshore when the cost of putting that structure and that strategy in place and paying that money is less painful for you than actually paying the tax that you're trying to reduce. So for a lot of people who are just starting out, the idea of having to go through the time, the effort, the research, the learning, and then the cost of putting a proper offshore structure in place, it is, or at least should be, more painful for them to go through all that than just to pay $5,000 or $10,000. Okay. The issue where the behavioral comes into play with the math problem is you can go out and you can find one of these companies that'll set up your offshore company for $672. The challenge is, having worked with people for years, most people who have done that or even paid a bit more never got the entire puzzle set up properly. And what I see out there is a lot of people who do the $672 offshore company formation, set up a bank somewhere with a minimum deposit, and then just run their business that way, is they're often missing a piece of the puzzle. So they've done it very cheaply, but the reason that they're succeeding is that they just haven't been caught yet. Perhaps they haven't properly checked out of their home country. Perhaps the company isn't set up correctly and they're just not doing the audits properly, or they're just skating by. Perhaps there's some kind of problem. Rarely does someone come who put one piece in place where there's not some kind of problem, and I'm just saying it's only a matter of time before they find you. We have a lot of offshore mistakes videos you can watch where I talk about things people misunderstood when setting up their plan. So does it make sense, if you have $50,000 a year in business profit, to go offshore and set up a company? The math problem may work if you're going to do it cheaply, but what will not be cheap is if you do it wrong, what happens 3 years from now when someone or something comes back to haunt you. So my opinion is this. First things first, we have to determine, do you even have a business at all? Sometimes someone has a hobby or a side hustle or some kind of personal income from like consulting where they're just doing it all on their own. It's not really a business. Now, as is often the case, the laws in the US are going to be a bit different than the laws for most of the rest of the Western world. In some cases, if you are just running a business on your own, you're just doing consulting, having a company may not even help your tax situation. So the first thing I want to do is, am I a profession or am I a business? That's going to dictate how I set up my company. Because if I'm a profession, the most important thing to do might simply become qualifying for the foreign earned income exclusion if I'm an American, or becoming tax non-resident if I'm from somewhere else. Okay? That alone might solve a lot of your problem. And again, this is not broad advice because it's impossible for me to diagnose your situation. But what I'm saying is, that's the first thing to start with. Okay? What's my personal tax situation? If I am a US citizen or a US person and I'm going to be living outside of the country to where an offshore company would help me, will an offshore company help me if I'm just running a small business or if I'm a one-man show? If I'm a citizen of another country, France or Belgium or Canada or whatever, am I sure that I'm not a taxpayer in that country? Okay? Because then the question is, well, where am I going to be spending my time outside of my country, and what's my tax situation there? So if both of those pieces of the puzzle are set up correctly, then that's probably the most important tax strategy that you need in place if you're in the sub six-figure level. Okay? From there, if you have a legitimate business that has other people working for it, then the company could become beneficial. But not everyone needs a company, okay? And so it's important to ask not which company should I get or how should my company bank, but do I even need a company in general? I work with 6 and 7 figure entrepreneurs. That's the realm that I've been in almost my entire life since starting a business at 19 years old. And so for me, the company structure from asset protection to legalities to just separating myself and the business, that makes sense. But if you're just starting out, it may not make sense. Above that, when you get into the 6-figure realm is really when I think it starts to make sense. For me, I look at someone who's $250,000, $300,000 and up, because at that level, you can really start to be getting professional advice. You can really start documenting things on a tax level. You can set up companies with higher quality people in potentially higher quality jurisdictions. You're going to get a better standard of service. You're going to make sure everything's done properly. It's what I call the success tax. There are times when I call my lawyer and he says, Andrew, why are you even calling me? You're paying me like all this money an hour to ask me a question. I said, yeah, I pretty much thought you were going to say that answer to the question, but when you're successful, you want to have everything double and triple checked. And so from my perspective, liking to dot all the I's and to cross all the T's, it really starts at that $250,000 to $300,000 level where you can really start to seek the next level of advice. Start to think about it at the 6-figure level, start to really dive in at the professional level at $250,000 to $300,000. That may put you in close to the top 1% of income earners in most countries, but to think that you have to be a multimillionaire or a gazillionaire to do this stuff is simply wrong. What you need is, number one, the ability to commit to executing an offshore plan. That means you're going to have to change a few things in your life. It means you might need to move overseas. It means you might need to incorporate your business somewhere else or move some of your employees somewhere else. You're going to have to make a few changes, okay? But if you're willing to do that, then getting the proper structure in place is doable. It just has to be something that you're willing to invest in. If the ROI is there, and I think at 250, 300, the ROI is definitely there. If the ROI is there and you're willing to commit to it, that's when it really starts to make sense. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist. I wrote this book, which you can find on Amazon, to distill a lot of the stuff we talk about in these videos and a lot of the stuff I've learned over the last decade plus traveling all around the world, teaching you about how to legally reduce your taxes, build your personal freedom, and create wealth faster. Definitely get a copy of this book if you want to learn more. Now, if you want to watch more videos, make sure you subscribe to our channel and make sure you click the notifications bell so you never miss one of our new videos with more tips on how to go where you're treated best. And if you're already a 6 or 7-figure entrepreneur and you'd like to put these strategies in place for yourself, go to nomadcapitalist.com and learn about how I can help you.